I'm Dylan Playfair,
And I'm Tyler Smith.
and this
Is Bromance.
Nailed It.
So hailing all the way from Russell, Manitoba, a man that can sell you anything at auction while also ripping past you on the skeleton track, the 2010 Olympic gold medalist in skeleton at the Vancouver Games, a member of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, a legendary TV personality and host of The Amazing Race Canada, and one of my personal favorite voices to listen to. Please welcome the one and only Jon Montgomery.
Wow, what an intro. Wish my wife would introduce me that way, because it is definitely, that last bit, not one of her favorite voices to listen to.
You know, I've told people this. Like, I actually like. Some people have a TV voice, and some people like turn it on. And I've told people, I'm like, listen, Jon has that voice where it's just like no matter. Like, we could just like be sitting at breakfast, and I'm like, yes, that's the voice.
Not even mine yet. My dad hasn't bequeathed it to me or willed it
Yeah.
to me. It's still his. We share it, and I gotta suggest that I'm leveraging his voice as my own for the time being.
I love it, love it. Well, Monty,
Great
it's truly a
voice.
pleasure. Yeah, Dale, like, what do you think?
I'm all thumbs up and ditto here, boys. Great voice, great face. Look at this guy. I mean, before we even started recording, he was helping build the shot, making sure the framing was right. He's a natural born artist and athlete. Can you dance? Triple threat right here.
Ask Ty if there is ever anything on the show involving dancing. You will only ever see me at that challenge sidle up to somebody that is doing it proficiently and be like, they got to do this shit now. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's my rider. And, CTV has an interest in trying to make sure that their host looks as cool as possible. And if they task me with dancing, fail. I would not look cool, and their host would be a herb.
That's hilarious. Well, 203 ain't bad, John. It's fantastic.
It's so good. But okay, let's jerk it back. Obviously, like we both have a love for the prairies, and I do want to talk about Russell. I think it's like we always got to talk about the origin story, but just like, Russell, Manitoba has actually produced some pretty incredible people for being such a small town. So talk about like that community and the fact that, you were built on like a roots of a small community and having that foundation, and then obviously taking it to the Olympics, and we'll get all to that. But talk about Russell.
I'm a big fan of believing that words mean things, and I get specific, and I will take that feather in the hat of your accolades of, wonderful people being from Russell. But what I think you meant to say is that people from the area have shown a great deal of athletic merit and leveled up athletically. But just because you're athletic and can play at a high level of elite competition doesn't make you a good person. So there are so many wonderful people in our area, in all of the rural Canadian communities that aren't exceptional at sports. But when we're talking about that, yeah, Russell and area
Yeah.
is prolific. I mean, let's name some of them. We got Theo Fleury, the smallest and one of hockey's winningest players of all time. So proud and was immeasurably inspired by him just at that perfect time in my life, coming of age, realizing that big things can happen to small people from small towns. Like, what a way to change the way that you view the world in which you live. That was transformative. But then guys like Kelly Buckberger, captain of the Edmonton Oilers. Playfair will know that, of course. Jeff Rogers, tough as nails, man. He come from Spy Hill. Bucky was from Langenberg. You got Pat Falloon, drafted number 2 overall in 1992, right behind Eric Lindros. Played out his days, great athlete. And then you've got guys that didn't make the show. And I know a number of fellas that later in life, when we all sort of found ourselves playing some pickup hockey, these guys outshone the ones that were in the show. There's one guy named Warren Morso, had 3 fingers cut off of his hand in a mining accident, hadn't skated for a decade. The 1984 Bantam team from Russell was playing the 1994 Bantam team from Russell in 2004. Had 20-year-old vets, 10-year-old from Bantam. Theo was on that 84 team. I was on the 94 team. We lost. The old boys won. And the best player on that ice was a diamond miner named Warren Morso. And he had 2 fingers on one hand. And was still he still shone. He hadn't skated in a decade. So a guy like that easily could have leveled up and gone to the show. But life circumstances. Sometimes You just need a little bit of luck on your side. And whatever. Russell, amazing. I will always be a Russell boy from there. You can tell that there's a little bit of pride about being from this area of the world. And it shapes who I am today, how I see myself in the world, how I travel through life, and maybe the types of things that I want to instill in my kids as what I felt were formative life lessons gleaned from being a prairie dog.
Right. It's interesting. There's this sort of common theme amongst folks who've come from small towns of this sense of like belonging and stability. And I think especially community. I when we were growing up, we moved a lot, give or take every 3 to 5 years. We were moving to another city, sometimes another country, and that was in pursuit of my dad's pro hockey dream. He'd played pro hockey, and by the time I was born, he was coaching pro hockey. So we moved all the time, but we always went back to our cottage in northern BC, and that sort of gave us a sense of home and you know being grounded and that foundation and that community. And I think that was something that as I got older, I sought out in any city that I ended up spending time in. Who are the people that I want to be around that are going to really support me in ways that this community does. And you talk about wanting to do the same thing for your kids. Are there things that come to mind that you can do to sort of implement some of those senses of community and community building, whether it's sports or art? Like, how do you implement that as not just a public figure, but someone who's not living in a very, very small town?
I think it happens consciously. It's not just going to be a byproduct of just floating through life. I think it has to be intentional. And growing up in a small town, it can be a byproduct of just being there. You're seen. Folks know who you are when you're on the street because they know your parents from the grocery store or downtown. And that is, I guess, an authentic, not having to pay attention to it. But my wife and I have to be intentional about it because like you mentioned, somebody that's out there has an elevated profile perhaps in the broader community. When you come home and my job is on the road and engaging with the public in a forward-facing manner, you want to kind of dial that back and to be a bit more private and to be a bit more stay at home. And that's remarkably different from how I grew up. You didn't have that capacity to have a sense of anonymity in Russell. You were just always known. And so I do treasure just, dialing it back, not being forward-facing, not being this version of myself. Like sitting at my supper table, there's an aspect of this that is there, but this is elevated. This is, not performative, but that 10% of character,
Right.
of impetus in the way that you speak and talk and mannerisms and
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
This heightened version of yourself. And when you're on
Hmm.
camera, you both know that, well, Dylan, you are a different character. But for, Smitty, and we have to be ourselves and endear ourselves to an audience. And so being flat, never going to do that. So you're that heightened version. And so we have to be really mindful about putting ourselves out into the community, taking those steps towards something that might not be filling our cup the way that being at home could, but our kids witnessing that. How men interact with one another and develop relationships is something that I could model for my son. How we treat the people in our community and how they should be treated is modeling for both of my children. I have a daughter that's 6 and a son that's older. And so I don't know what the right answer is, although I do know that it has to be modeled. And my wife and I have to make really concerted efforts to
Right.
show what investment in community is, how being a part of something greater than yourself is, and paying it forward. And maybe mine and my wife's isn't in this small town sense, but maybe in a broader sense. We both feed back positively into the sport ecosystem where,
Right.
we get to play kids sport, those types of things. So we're modeling that give back, what that community building aspect is in a bigger center. And we don't know what that's like because we're both kind of rural. Darla grew up outside Calgary, very rural, and I grew up podunk from middle of nowhere. So we're figuring it out as we go along, but we're mindful about it.
Right. I think Joe Walsh has a really beautiful quote, or in his book, he goes, at the time, and I may butcher the quote, but at the time it feels like chaotic, random events, and none of it seems to make sense until you turn back and look and recognize it. It reads like a finely crafted novel.
Yeah.
That is the plan, is like, well, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we know how we're going to behave in these situations, and we know how we're going to present to the community. And I think that's something that, at least from my firsthand experience, having a father who, like your children, had a dad who was publicly recognized, and watching how you carry yourselves in those situations. You can't plan for that. You can't, know, okay, this is going to happen at 10:15. I'm going to be recognized, and I'm going to give 20 minutes of my time. But when you watch that stuff happen, and I think that's really the parallel that I found between a small town and being recognized. It's like there is no anonymity in a small town. And then if you get to a place of recognizability, that kind of goes across the country. And I feel like it's a really good foundation to go into that world when you've experienced what it's like to go out and have everyone know your name just because you're from Russell. And then, yeah, I think it's a good foundation.
You could use the Amazing Race Canada as a metaphor for, I guess, raising children, modeling, or incorporating yourself into a community. Smitty, that you wanted to win that show. That was the goal. You had no idea how you were going to get there or what the pathology of where you were on that start line to how you wanted to get to that end goal was going to be realized. But with that in mind, the, I guess, decisions that you got to measure were either weighted on, does this get me closer to my goal or take me further away? And without knowing the pathology or the road to get to your destination, you got to figure it out as you're going. We want to model being community members to our kids. We don't know how to do it, but we know we want to get there. And so how we figure it out along the way between Darla and I will be revealed.
And I think you've really like emphasized in a way like the importance of the journey. And I think, there's a quote that I really align with is just like in seeking peace or in seeking joy and seeking fulfillment, like the journey is as important as the result. It's funny because now I think about it like the Amazing Race a little bit for you even is kind of like a full circle moment, I'm sure, because like your journey from Russell, Manitoba to, eventually to Olympic podium, like what a journey. And obviously like growing up, did you have the goal of, making it to the Olympics and being a gold medalist in skeleton? I'm not sure. So let's get into that. Like talk about like that journey of like 2002, like coming to the Olympic Park and like, being like, okay, skeleton, like what is this all about? So I guess like that infamous adventure to Calgary, like talk about that.
Well, in terms of the story arc, it begins in '88 in my basement by myself, watching Ben Johnson win gold at the Seoul Olympics. What the hell is this? What are the Olympics? You're in grade 3. You're like 8. What was I? Summer. I'd already probably had my 9th birthday, so I'm my son's age right now. And I had no conscious awareness of what the Olympics was. First time just sort of hearing about it and feeling this pride swell inside me when the man that had just won the hallmark event of the Summer Olympics was from my country. What? Me and this guy, we share the maple leaf, we share his flag. What? Yes, this is amazing. I can get behind this. I like sport. I like competing. I didn't know about this. And then, of course, '88 Calgary. And then '89 Theron, winning with the Calgary Flames. All these things set the stage for me to, I guess, revere something, which was competition, competing for Canada. The realization that I didn't need to be from anywhere or to have any sort of a stature in terms of where I belonged socioeconomically in the community or in terms of physical stature. None of these things were definitive as to whether or not I could achieve. And so that had been modeled. So I tried to find my pathway. I realized that hockey wasn't going to be it pretty quickly, that I wasn't the next Theo Fleury. But when I saw Salé and Pelche in the O2 games in Calgary, living in a city that I had just moved to, I had already tried speed skating upon arrival, had to be a good skater to just avoid utter devastation. That small guy on your team that just had to have wheels, otherwise he'd be a green spot. Or me. So I thought I'd leverage that skating ability for speed skating. Holy, it is way harder than you'd ever anticipate.
I suck at it too.
Anybody wants to see like a monolithic slab of leg? Check out Smitty's quads. And I on the mat one day. You'll remember. I was like, Smitty, you never missed leg day, eh, buddy?
Have a light day.
Oh, what is it? A redwood? Box jump a redwood? This guy?
Yeah, box jumper redwood. And so those were the beginnings of I want to represent Canada. And then seeing a skeleton race, and you know immediately that there ain't nobody playing that game. That's got to be a pretty short bench, and maybe I could level up to being competitive internationally. I tried it. It resonated with me at my core from I really enjoy this. I can sink my teeth into it, call it my own. I don't know what I'll get out of it, but if I'm going to give everything of myself to it and to a goal, which was representing Canada at the games, I gotta love it. You wouldn't get through the heartbreak, the disappointment, the perpetual setbacks, the injuries, the politics, all of it in totality would become overwhelming. But if you love it, it's nothing. Anyway, that was, I guess, the how I found myself tobogganing in Calgary. I moved there for work after college and uni, and just by proxy, having been close enough to something to go, "Oh, I could try that. I could do that. I could test my mettle there." You have an opportunity to level up, but like most things in life, the best things won't fall in your lap out of the sky like a meteorite. You'll have to try them on, figure out which suit fits. Do I like this? Nah, try the next one. And by actively participating in stretching your comfort zone, you'll find the stuff that resonates, that fits, feels like you, that's worth suffering
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. I think a big part of finding out who you are is finding out who you're not,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, good one. I love that quote.
This
And
is it.
and that's just it. Like, of all the things that you could choose in life, it's a process of elimination. No, 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 no. Come back to that. Right. Still no. But figuring out what you don't like, Dylan, good one.
Those moments where we think we want something so bad and then it ends up not working out, but because it did not work out, you get this other opportunity that's just like, it's that Joe Walsh thing where you look back and you're like, man, it all makes perfect sense. At the time it didn't, but now it does. And clearly, you've done something that you love and found success in it. So you've checked off quite a few of the boxes, man. That's really exciting.
It's those sliding doors bits. We are so fortunate for not getting everything that we covet and want in life sometimes. And case in point, tobogganing. When they were building that track, there's two finish lines on the track in Whistler. There's the one finish line at the very end of the final curve. You come around that corner, and that's the luge, and that's the luge finish line. And it's very uphill from about the bottom corner 15 to those finish lines. The bobsled and luge stop was much further up the track. I'd say another 60, 70 feet up the trap, uphill. Knowing that my big competitors in my mind were going to be my fellow Canadians, and they were a lot larger than I was, I wanted that finish line right at the end, right at that luge finish line, so that they wouldn't pass me going uphill with their greater momentum. And we didn't get that. Bobsled and skeleton were up the track. Luge was at the end of that corner. And had that been the case, had I got what I wanted, which was for the skeleton finish line to be where the luge one is, that 0.07 second margin of victory that separated me from silver and Martin's Dukers from gold, I wouldn't have had enough track to overtake him on that final descent. We would have been very close to being
Jeez.
tied, and I suspect that he probably would have clinched the gold had that finish line been where I wanted it to be. We wouldn't be sharing a conversation right now had it been a silver biscuit instead of the gold.
Okay, hold up, because that is the pivotal moment. I remember even when we were racing, you said it. You said, and we will get into it, but you said if that, the famous beer chug, if that woman didn't hand me that beer, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. But before that, you're moving to Calgary. You're now trying a new sport. You're now you were going from Russell, Manitoba to Calgary, Alberta, and it is a whole different world, a whole different landscape, whole different, demographic of people, audiences, everything. Your support system. And obviously you trying a new sport, you had to have had a pretty special support system, because that's not an easy thing, individually anyways, but also just the people around you to be able to constantly support you and be like, John, you're doing this, and we will be here for you. Talk about your core people, whether it's the friends from Russell that just silently cheered you along the way, whether it's mom and dad, talk about the friendships and the support system and the relationships along the way that did help you get to that gold biscuit moment.
Well, it starts in your formative years, knowing that you've got a safe place to fall. And when you've got that safety net, you said it, I use that term as well. I knew I could fail. I knew that if I fell flat on my face, if I took this great big swing towards a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, I could fail and I'd be okay. But I always felt like I could strive because if it didn't work out, I had parents that were going to be there for me. And not that I ever needed that safety net. I'm grateful to say that it was just emotional support and financial support, but I never needed to go home because they'd instilled in me the confidence to take big swings, to know that when there was a minor setback, it wasn't definitive. It was just a lesson for what not to do next time. And that we aren't our wins, we aren't our losses. I guess how we respond to those things, how we hold ourselves in a community, in relationships. Those are the measures of a person, and it's not the wins and losses or the accolades or your trophy case. Those don't define people. I knew I could fail, and that was allowing me to take the big swings, to find something like skeleton that I could do. And my employment, I began to try and think about how I could change my employment structure. As a 9 to 5 guy at the auction, I needed to find something that would be flexible. A fella from back home provided me that launch pad to be able to install and sell bank machines around Western Canada. Load them back into my Volkswagen Jetta wagon diesel in 2003 and 2004. Jim Pattison would eventually hire me, not personally, but my old manager at the auction, Farley Frontchak, gave me a job at Jim Pattison Lease, and they supported my pursuit of athletic excellence, gave me a job to make good bank during the summertime, doing something that supported my ridiculous penchant for tobogganing in the wintertime. There was a friend that I grew up with. Her name is Julie Sallin, and she made the national development team in volleyball. And she visited us at where I was living with my friend and her boyfriend at the time in Tuscany. And seeing her shoes in the front door walking in there and knowing that Julie had just made the national development team in volleyball was so inspirational. I was like, I know this girl. She's amazing. And she found her thing. I have to keep looking. And I wanted that sense of pride and leveling up national team. The ego aspect of it was compelling. Being able to fail made it all feel possible. It wasn't so overwhelming.
Right. Yeah, I think that's such a huge, huge part of the opportunity at success is that awareness of like if you do fail, if you fall flat on your face, which you have to, you will not get to where you want to go without those failures. It's part of the learning process. But sort of having that safety net, just reiterating what you mentioned, it comes in a lot of different forms, whether it's family, friends, or just a belief in yourself that I'm a hardworking person. I'll be able to sustain myself. I don't think I'll end up, in a ditch somewhere. It's interesting too how many different people play those roles. You mentioned your friend watching her do that. I think it's so cool when it sort of lessens the distance between you and the other of, the people that you wanna be like, when you interact with them in real time and when you know them personally, it makes it seem so much more possible, you know?
I refer to it as a why not me moment. You can have a why not me out of wanting, coveting something that somebody else has, and out of a sense of, I don't know what the right terminology is, but saying why not me out of a sense that something is owed to you.
Yeah.
Why not me? Like they got a Nintendo, why not me?
Right.
But the realization that if somebody else can do it, and when you ask yourself, why not me? Now that's a powerful moment, not out of the sense of obligation, like somebody owes you something, but the realization that if they can do it, why not me also? And so I'm perpetually finding why not me moments using people as inspiration, motivation to try and level up and expanders. As opposed to being jealous, look for expanders everywhere and change the bitterness in jealousy to, yeah, I covet that. I recognize that jealousy in me and I need to flip the switch on it being a negative, toxic, caustic feeling to one of expansion, leaf. Why not me?
To expand on that, have you found that people in those positions, um, do you find them to be generous with their time and their stories? Like, that's something that I found in my film career is when being passionate about acting and film and television, when I meet someone who I look up to and I have the chance to share the passion, it seems to be a really interesting feedback loop where you can tell they're excited by your excitement. Has that been something that you have found as well with that expansiveness you speak of?
I think so. I think that people who don't feel as though they have something to lose are motivated by other people's excitement in what they do. If you get a really secure individual in acting, I suspect, and they don't feel as though that Dylan Playfair is going to steal that next role from them, they'll invest in you. They'll get jacked. They'll be super pumped. People love to talk about themselves, probably more than any other subject. But if you can show interest in what they've done and they're secure, I suspect that you will have the foundations of a beautiful, blossoming friendship. If you show interest in something that somebody has done and express that I too would like to do what you do, and that is an insecure person, I guess helping you become the person that you can be and investing in you and feeding back into this incredible energy that you're putting forth, that they'll be training their replacement, that they haven't got the time, but they really don't get what human connection is all about, and that that's a good indicator. Like bright lines on a snake, you do not want to be in my orbit because that energy, it is infectious. They'll bring you down. They'll suck from you and give nothing back. They're just leeches, shit heels that you ought not to be around. And people tell you right away. Believe people when they tell you stuff like that, and then feed into those relationships where somebody's jacked to talk to you about how to show up, how to prepare, getting the most out of the person standing in front of you as characters. How do you draw emotion out of that person that you're sharing a scene with? And I don't know anything about acting.
You nail it.
But I've got an immense amount of respect for people that do take the stage, take the screen, and actually act. It's something that I've got interest in, not to do personally, but because I love watching it, understanding the dynamics of how did that person go there.
Well, I think it's athletics, right? Like so many of the things you mentioned are some of the sort of cornerstones of successful athletes and team players. Kyle, I'll hand it off to you for this one, but I think we're both really curious about the team element of a one person sport. You know, there's you on the track, but I have to believe that there's so many more folks that are going in to making that moment possible.
You said it perfect. Like, it's like the curiosity aspect of things. Like, and I'm sure, you know, especially for you looking back and reflecting on like you moving to Calgary and trying this sport, and also like the fact that you were competing mainly against Canadians in that final race. Like, I'm sure there was such a curiosity element. And this is from like Ted Lasso, and we talk about film, we talk about TV. You know, his famous real rant in the bar. He says, "Be curious, not judgmental," and I think there's such an aspect of that, especially when you do have like the failures. And Tessa Virtue said it. She said, once you experience the lows, the highs are that much better. And I think, you know, like the failure aspect of, you know, Dr. Jodie Carrington says it in her talks of like embracing failure and like actually getting to a point where you can reflect on the fact that like, all right, there's some resilience there. And I can like remember that a critical element of joy is resilience, like stemming from those deep dark days. So yeah, I mean, so many things, and I love where we're going with this. But I guess, you know, talk about like that, especially when you do get to Vancouver for those Olympic Games, like that team aspect of like, all right, I know I'm competing against my guys, but there's still an aspect of community here, and there's still an aspect of like these are my people, and this is my national team. Like, talk about that.
As a single person sport, and your characterization of there has to be a team element to witnessing the proverbial tip of the iceberg fly down the frozen toilet chute on a frozen cafeteria tray with rails on it at 146 kilometers per hour. I know there's more going on there than just this raggedy ass ginger that's piloting this thing. There's more there. I can't see it, but I know it because I've been involved in sport. And you hit the nail on the head. We are the proverbial tip of the iceberg, that there is so much more that goes into a personal success than just showing up and doing it by yourself. And our team was fractured. There was an old guard that I wasn't a part of that had been there prior to the 2002 reintroduction as a full medal sport into the Olympic program. It was in the Olympics in 24 and 48 in St. Moritz, and then 50 years later in 2002, officially reintroduced as a full medal sport. So '02 in Salt Lake, first go round. But that old guard, now after 2002, on July the 3rd of 2003, it cemented the next 7 years of our program's trajectory. We were working towards representing our country at a home Olympics, and that had been established. With that now looming 7 years down the road, there was an injection of cash to own the podium, to do all this other stuff. The old guard was very protective of the information that they'd gleaned uphill to school or the track. We had invested in trying to write words on an easel like peer coaching, synergizing, pooling resources, collective propagation of information, whatever. Hollow, empty, unlived values. Nobody was buying into it. We were still lip service to these ideals until we found ourselves at the Whistler track at the end of the '08 season after the Altenburg World Championships had concluded. We regrouped in Whistler to slide that track for the very first time. We began to feed into this idea that collectively we could do more. We could level up faster. We could expedite the learning curve. And there's a few adages which relate to this, and they say that a rising tide raises all ships. It's an old adage. We don't even have ships really anymore, and it still rings true today. And that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you got to go together. And there's a theory called the drag-along effect, that if you help people around you get better, you can't help but get better yourself. You collectively all get better. You don't train your replacement. And we did begin to take 4 guys, for instance, that were there training on that Whistler track. You were going through one of the challenging corners, like maybe corner 2 or corner 6, and you would all have a steering pattern. You'd all do something different. You would confirm you would compare notes at the end, equipment, push times, driving lines. You would watch the video. You didn't need to compare much with the guy that was being attended to by the ambulance attendant because his worry was terrible, obviously. And wouldn't you know, we turned that track inside and out. We figured the most efficient and effective way to get down that track with a few variables that you could play with. But there was pretty much a standard idea of how to navigate this incredibly unique track, very fast track, the world's fastest track. And that wouldn't have happened in the time that we did it unless we did it together. Trying to be the best version of yourself on the day that matters most isn't something that you just will or hope for or manifest in that moment. It's a derivative of preparation that you do, hopefully, with other people beside yourself. Physical training, the mental training, the spiritual training. And I got to think that one of the biggest components of my success were the pre-work that I did with my teammates, because we finally bought into the idea that we could be better together. And I know it for a fact. That's what one of the biggest components for 7/100ths of a second. Dylan, blink your eyes. You just did. Your eyes. That was a 10th. That was a 10th of a second. Us being here today is separated by less than the blink of an arm.
Jeez Louise.
Less than the blink of an eye.
The margins.
64 corners, 4 runs, total time, 64. It's got a 16 corner track, so you do that 4 times. 64 corners, over 3 minutes of actual tobogganing time, 3 minute, 23.7 seconds, I forget. And I was never in the lead until the very last split on the very last run. Jason Martins-Duker is the best skeleton athlete that the world will probably ever know, the winningest of all time. But that wasn't his day. He made one small error where I had to be perfect to clip him. And the near perfection allowed me to outpace the best there ever was on that day, just that day.
I think it's fair to say that while we both love friendships, we both love love. And the cool thing is, charm is a part of our real life love stories.
When the time came to propose to Kat, I worked with the team at Charm to design a ring that really reflected just how much I love her.
And when Jen and I exchanged our vows, we also exchanged wedding bands from Charm. Charm isn't your average mall jewelry store. Aside from being proudly Canadian owned and operated, they're also so proud to be a part of your love stories.
You can buy something right from the case, or like me, you can design something custom and one of a kind.
I'm many things, Ty, but I'm not a jewelry designer. That's where Charm comes in to help with the assist.
And not only does Charm have the most incredible selection of gifts for literally anyone in your life, they come with warranties, unbeatable pricing policies, free cleanings, financing plans, and so much more.
Charm Diamonds has been around for over 50 years, and you can shop in one of their many stores across Canada or online. Visit charmdiamonds.com now.
As someone who's never gone down a frozen toilet, as you so aptly called it, I love that. Is there a sense of time dilation, like to be moving at that speeds and to have those margins? There must be the tenths of seconds for athletes like yourselves must feel different than for someone like Ty and I. Can you talk a bit about that?
They're
Goosebumps.
the goosies. You talk about time dilation, and I think about being on that track. And I think that that's energetic, in a sense, or maybe the thrill of tobogganing is in me right now, and that energetically can ever be excised uh, from this electric being that we are. That energy is collapsed in time and space. You can always be there instantaneously, and there is time dilation when you have a profound sense of what's happening around you, and you're in a flow state. And your very first descent down that track, you could never hope to be in a flow state because the totality of newness and the barrage of sensory overload is just wicked. It's amazing. You couldn't jab a vein
Wow.
to have that kind of an experience. And any junkie out there ought to try something like skydiving, controlled environments of absolutely out of body type of experiences that you need to understand at a really profound level every nuance and control and muscle firing in this body is going to lead to something else. And after an incredible amount of volume in thinking about it and actual applied practice on that track, you begin to dissect the track, break it down into its components. And as you're executing that thing that you've rehearsed in your mind countless times, the speed, the sensation of the cold, you're tobogganing in a spandex onesie in -40. And at -40, 140 is like -80. And you don't feel any of it. You don't think about the bill that's sitting on your desk at home for your cell phone bill that hasn't been paid, your rent. You don't think about the next training session, the next run. You think about that next inch if you are in a flow state and your entire world begins to morph. And when you were training for those Olympics, you could go down the track through a corner and have recognized who was trackside, who the ref and coach was, who was smoking a cigarette in what corner. All of these things happen while you're processing information at hyperspeed and you don't consciously think about it. But if you go back, it's all there, almost like an autobiographical memory of what was taking place when you went down that track. You can close your eyes and everything is recorded because the totality of the newness has dissipated. Now you're fixated on the minutia, on the details, on that connective tissue between each corner, and that type of stuff. In a state where you're familiar, you can slow it down. You can get to that flow state. You can harness the power of concentration, and your world. You call time dilation. I wouldn't have said that because I'd only ever heard the term, but I'm going to try and remember time dilation and use it in this kind of sense.
It's something that fascinates me. The speeds at which we talk about. We recently a gentleman who races F1, and that's something I think with a similar set of stakes, right? You have so much is happening so fast, and the margins of victory and loss are tenths of seconds, which most human beings do not deal in margins that thin. And it's something that just fascinates me because
Remember the
it
Monaco
feels
tunnel last year? The F1 driver going around the corner in that dark tunnel identifies a car that stalled out in front of him at hyper speeds and does and was right around him. And they work on their reflexes. They make sure that they are cat-like, and then they can lean into them to save themselves. And you mentioned F1. We're smitten with F1 right now because the same dynamics with the interplay within a team, McLaren 1 versus McLaren 2, those dynamics are are more competitive than McLaren versus Ferrari because you're competing with this guy for a seat. That's the guy that's going to tank your spot if you don't beat him. And you want to beat the other Canadians more than you want to beat the rest of the world, period. And that's the same in F1. The dynamics, they make more money or they make money. But we don't make nothing. But we're drawn to it for those team dynamics, the racing, the interplay, and of course the excitement of auto racing. But
it's fascinating, man. I love that stuff. It just really interests me a lot.
like Gretzky behind the net, time dilation. His office, he could slow it down. He could see and probably play out scenarios in his mind. Like, you know how in movies, A Beautiful Mind, they'll this interplay of oh, you know what the good ones are? Sherlock Holmes, Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes, when Tony Stark. What's his name? The guy.
Oh,
Oh,
Robert Downey Jr.
When Robert Downey Jr. is about to scrap somebody, he goes through all these scenarios in his brain. There's that time dilation. He's slowing it down. He's like, if I hammer chop the jaw, break it, take the knee out,
Yeah.
and he's doing this mental gymnastics in his mind, and it's all done. That's the time dilation behind the net. Wayne Gretzky probably doing, if I go there, then this happens. If I sneak around here, this happens. And he can slow time down because of confidence, familiarity, repetition,
Mm-hmm.
and skill. But the skill that he earned, and there's a blessing there as well. But he'd taken that blessing and sharpened it, honed it to a
And I
wax.
think it all comes like, I don't know, this to kind of related to the race, even just like the aspect of being present. And I think that's something that like a lot of people really long for. And I think in today's day and age, it's sorry, not impossible, but it's just so hard to not like to be fully present. And I get it. Like now that we did 30 days without a phone on the race, like you really understand the aspect of being present and running through things through your mind and like actually like, the whole mindset of like what you can achieve. So for you, we could talk for hours, but we have to just talk about the moment. We have to talk about the beer chug. I want to know, like, after you win the medal as well, like after the beer chug, after everything settles, like you're looking around and I know I think family and friends were there, but like talk about the quiet moments where you're able to just like celebrate with your core people, your support system, and just like really like have that moment of like being present, but also like reflecting on everything that's happened until this moment. So gold medal, beer chug, the quiet moments afterwards.
It's all right there. And I think in a moment like that, you've gone out and reveled after a milestone met. I think the longer you work towards a goal, the less maybe profound reveling there is. You know what I mean? Like the party can happen later, but in that moment, right after it, to savor it with family in quietness and connectedness is something that I got to do and that I'm super grateful for. As opposed to, we had that sense of community, that sense of having shared it with the Whistler Rotunda, going and doing that interview with Jen Hedger at the roundabout with the beer moment and singing O Canada with your brothers and sisters and reveling like that was awesome. Then immediately after that, slowing it down, turning it down to what was important. My aunts and uncles were there, my cousins, my sisters, my mom and dad, obviously. And that was the part that I really remember with a few key friends there. These are your family, your people, your tribe, and to spend it with them, knowing that there's probably nobody else on planet Earth that knows you as well as they do. These are the people most familiar with who you are at your core. They know the miserable shit you did as a kid. They have been there through the trials and tribulations. They know about you, not just this moment in time. And that was awesome to spend it with them. I'll treasure that forever. Being at my aunt and uncle's cabin that they'd rented was remarkable that night with my immediate family.
Wow. And I think it's just like the aspect of like storytelling. Like it's truly like this is your story, but in that moment, like everybody that was in that room, everybody that was celebrating with you was like is a part of your story. But I do want to touch on the race and like getting the call to be the host, and now just like this podcast is really about connection. It's really about storytelling. It's really about the journey. It's really about like staying connected with your people and really obviously utilizing your people. And I think from your lens, from your angle, you have seen the best. You have seen the hardest moments for people. You have seen people from all across the country, aim to get on the race and, with the ultimate goal of winning the Amazing Race Canada. How profound has that been for you of just like because I public speak about mental health and like just like how everybody needs to remember that everyone has a story and holding on to that extra ounce of empathy and compassion and something that I truly want to just compliment you is like we talked about the curiosity aspect of things. Like every time Kat and I finished a leg of the race, as tired as we were, it was always refreshing to come to the mat because you could tell that you were genuinely curious. And I know sometimes maybe there's that questions that producers want you to ask, but it's still an aspect of like you could tell that Jon is like curious about like how we're doing and how we're feeling and how the day was and how we're looking forward to what's next. So like the profoundness of storytelling, the profoundness of connection, what's that been like for you as being the host of the Amazing Race Canada?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's incredibly kind. And when folks ask, what quality do you possess that you're most proud of? I always circle back to and think that curiosity, to be born with a curious mind, is maybe the biggest blessing that a person could have bestowed upon them, because I don't know how to coach curiosity. I bet there's a way. I'm not saying definitively that there's not. I just don't know. So I consider it to be an incredibly special quality that I hold near and dear to my heart, and that I have been blessed with, perhaps, but I have always been curious. And that's what makes my job as the host of the Amazing Race Canada and having those mat chats effortless. Like, eh, I'll pay you to let me be here to ask questions about the craziest day that these people who are competing have just experienced. And while I haven't seen any of the drama play out because I didn't watch you do a single challenge, I had been there earlier trying my hand at it. I know how difficult it is. Watching it back, you and Kat, though, was brilliant. The way that you managed your relationship, that's the hallmark right there. You passed that. The best thing the best thing you got out of the Amazing Race was the realization that Kat's the one. And you can't pay
Absolutely.
for that, brother. Of course, the trips and the money and the car.
They were bonuses.
Knowing that you got the gal to go the distance with, man, that was proven. You knew it. You're a bit slow, buddy. Better late than never. I'm gonna bury you there. That's one time.
Oh my gosh.
That curiosity aspect is something that makes my job easy to do. Is something that I will continue to do for as long as they're going to have me around. What an amazing thing to be able to champion that. Our country is unbelievably beautiful with these backdrops that we do, but more importantly, showing what a team of two is capable of accomplishing. Watching Canadians be inspired by people living life outside their comfort zones, taking these steps towards things that scare them, doing it together, realizing that we'll always do more as a team than we ever will individually, and that nobody ever won the Amazing Race Canada by themselves. That job, I have an immense amount of gratitude for. I am surrounded by professionals, and this is my team now. And I get to have this unbelievable adventure with the greatest television makers in the country. It's my team now. It's my hockey team, it's my skeleton team, and it is now my extended family in television. So to get back together, to celebrate, to create something that people revere and that they can enjoy together. I never hear anything better than having parents say that they watch it with their kids and that it's scheduled family viewing time.
Oh, it's the best.
What a treasure to be a
It
part of
is.
something that resonates with families like that adds value, and that it is as wholesome as the Amazing Race is nothing but gratitude. Don't know why I got that lucky, but I did, and it's not lost on me that I should treasure it.
You said it perfectly.
That's
Like
beautiful.
that was our favorite part, is like we would have, dads or moms come up to us and be like, we sat every Tuesday night and just watched. We didn't go into that with like the goal of like, okay, we just hope people watch on Tuesdays. Like it's just truly like, we hope this is amazing for Kat and I. And then you hear about the fact that there's something created, like a space created where people are like, we never watch, like it's hard to get your family together to watch something, during the week especially, and to hear that they're doing that is just like, yeah, you talk about gratitude. I think that was like what brought us an immense amount of gratitude. But anyway, speed round, we're almost done.
No, I gotta go back though, bro. It was truly a special season. I'm a human being. I can't not have human emotions. There are teams that I am more drawn to than other teams, just as human beings, and there are seasons that stand out in my mind more than other seasons. And what you and Kat brought to the show, makes it maybe the most special season of the race. And
Wow.
the way that people cheered for you because of how you spoke, how you articulated your feelings, and the human aspect to a race that is maybe not necessarily as humanizing as all other forms of TV. But when you guys showed up and you did it the way you did it, man alive.
Oh,
A legend, brother. Stop a legend.
Monty, appreciate that. That really does mean a lot. And I think it's, yeah, you really never know what's next sometimes. And yeah.
Want to talk about the power of community? You had an entire country cheering for you, as
Yeah.
I know I did too, perhaps on February 19th, 2010. And where the things come that make the difference makers, if at the end of the day it's just the collective interest of a lot of people that want to see us do well, then I got to think that there's something to the power of the collective.
Hmm.
Special. It's
Yeah,
special.
agreed.
It's powerful. But okay, speed round. We are living in such a connected world, and but a lot of people feel disconnected. And I know that curiosity is such a good way to stay connected with your people. But especially for the old stigma, the old masculinity side of things, like this is a bromance podcast. We're proud to say that I love telling my boys that I love them. At my wedding on Saturday, I'm going to tell probably 100 of my boys that I love them. And I just want to know for you, for tips, advice, like how do you stay connected? Like truly with your people, with your Russell, Manitoba people, your Calgary people, your Skeleton people, your now Vancouver family, like talk about that connection aspect and what do you recommend to people? Like how does it work for you?
I'm maybe not the best person to ask all the time. I will say that I do make an attempt, but I maybe don't do as good a job as I could. But when you talk about connection in a world that's hyper connected, I don't believe that those connections are real. I think that there is a world of hyper awareness with really low connectivity, and that just because we're aware of something doesn't make us connected to it, which would be why people would say awful things about the demise of somebody else, which is why people would tear somebody else down for having achieved something, which is why people do the things that they do online because of an actual disconnect from reality, from authentic connection, from the power of love. And that in that vacuum, in that void, bad shit fills the space. And so if we are looking to connect, it doesn't happen online. You might find out about a place to go to interact with people, but you have to go. And I believe that you need to be in the presence of other folks energetically. We cast out a toroidal field, getting crazy now. And energetic field exists beyond our physical body. And when you're in it, and when you feel somebody that you connect with energetically, I don't think you can unknow that. An authentic connection in the moment is something that you feel and that you have value for. And so get out there. And I need to take my own advice from a guy that lives a public life and likes to be home. I got to get out there. Last night I said no to hockey. Next Monday I can't say no. I got to go. I got to show up. I got to be in that dressing room with other men, and I got to level up. Selfishly, I know I'm going to live longer if I've got fucking friends. Period.
Yeah.
People need people. If you're a hermit and you hate folks and you want to live in Alaska, guess what? When you stop being able to climb that self-made ladder to get your food cache out of the tree, you got to come back to civilization, and you're going to need somebody, or you die up.
Mhm.
But even that guy needs human connection. Whether you like it or not, we do, and we thrive when we have it. And so I got to do more of it. I got to model it to my kids, how to be a good friend, how to make friends, and how to be a part of a community. I know it maybe better than anybody, being from Russell, Manitoba, and what the power of that means and what it's brought to me personally. And yet I still, maybe for fear of, I guess, public scrutiny, I don't travel through time and space the way that I used to. Going through Pearson Airport and back in the day, tobogganing days, Montreal Airport, nobody knew you outside of Russell or your tobogganing group, and you'd look people in the eye. You would make contact with people in public, and I don't do that anymore for fear of a glimmer of recognition that in the past would have meant that we know each other. But now that glimmer of recognition is, did I meet you at an event that I was at? Do you know me from TV? Are you responding to just a familiarity of this ginger face, and then the awkwardness of, do we, so I just don't look at people in the eyes anymore. Me unconsciously doing that has led to me sort of pulling back from doing things that I need to be doing, connecting, making friends. And I feed into those old friendships, the formative ones, my Russell days, the old boys that I don't have to be any version of myself with no fear of judgment. You don't have to put on airs. You just show up, and you can pick up where you left off with the old crew like nobody's business. And I've got my Russell core group of friends. I've got my Skeleton Day core group of friends, hockey friends, TD friends. And in this community that I've been living in now on Vancouver Island for over a decade, less people in my stable of buddies that I should have.
Do you find though it's interesting to hear your perspective on that because I think I personally can relate on a lot of those feelings because, you talk about it feeling like a family, the Amazing Race family. I think those fill big voids in those relationship sort of the things that we all need as human beings, a sense of community, the sense of I've got your back, you've got my back. I'm going to show up not just because I want to do a good job, but because I want to make sure that you have the ability to do a good job as well. And it's this ecosystem. And, I've constantly sort of grappled with this sense of, am I doing enough to be in contact with these people from, you know, outside of these circles? And you realize I think we're in a unique situation where our jobs require us to be, okay, you're not doing much. And now for the next 5 months, it's every single day with these people. And I think there is a social battery. So I think it's also, the podcast is about mental health and about relationships. And I think giving yourself permission to acknowledge that and say, okay, sometimes those relationships look different for different people. And I think the pursuit of being a good person is the act of being a good person. And, self-awareness is huge. In my journey, I found not beating myself up for not reaching out all the time because I'm like, yeah, I do have these moments where I'm with people all day, every day for months at a time. And that's not normal for a lot of folks. So
Yep.
anyway, I just wanted to
No.
comment on that because I
Your
identify with it.
battery comment is poignant and having grace, man. Like, I mean, I give myself a lot of grace. Like, don't think that I'm sitting here beating myself up, man. Like, I need a buddy to next door. Being mindful, having that grace, cutting myself some slack last night for not going out to hockey by making sure that I level up next Monday and I'll be there. Having the grace to say I had stuff going on. It's okay that I didn't go, and nobody's gonna hate me for not going. So you're right.
Monty, truly, I mean, it's been such a pleasure. I was telling Dylan, obviously we connected on the show, and we always see on the, at the final map, but it's just nice to be able to chat. It's just nice to be able to, be curious about John, because you're always curious with us, so it's truly a pleasure.
Well, Smitty, I will say, and I think you were mentioning it to Dylan, that we haven't spent a ton of time together, like Matt chats, but I think it is telling that I feel like there's a lot more history there and time that we've actually spent in each other's presence because
We got a bromance going.
because of, I think, the amount of energy that was
Yeah.
in those moments that we connected, the genuine curiosity on my part, me knowing about your backstory and so on, endeared me to you and Kat, hearing the way that you talk to each other in real time, but then I guess feeling like I was there with you watching the show back because I watch as a fan. And I
Yeah.
got to watch you guys compete and felt like I was a part of that journey. So I think I probably feel like I know you better than maybe you might know me, but I feel like we're bros. There is definitely the desire tied to, well, at least outdrive you. And I'm going to, you have no idea how hard I'm going to swing. I'm going to launch it and I'm going to try and outdrive it.
My guy.
And Dylan, I hope that you'll come and we'll find one other sucker to round out our foursome. I'm a lefty. I don't know what that means.
I'm a lefty too, brother.
Oh,
Yeah, we got some curveballs coming. I'm
Okay,
also
I'll
really
find a
good at
righty.
making beer
Yeah.
cold. So
Me
just
and
so you
Dylan,
know.
and you find your sucker, and
Yep.
we're gonna play. I usually have time for 9, but with you guys, I'm doing 18 because my bros. I need to.
Yep.
Darla, I need to invest in making.
We'll
some
tell
friends.
Darla. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm already gone for probably about 12 hours
Yeah, we'll pull some strings.
to play 18 holes of golf. These
Yeah.
days.
We'll
Yeah.
pull some strings.
Hour a hole, and if we show up a day later, it's not missing the mark by much.
No.
That's
Yeah,
just it.
we'll have some memories to share. But truly, John, I don't know if you're got anything else, but I'll find my righty.
I'm
All right.
so full up, buddy. I'm gonna go find my sucker. And man, what an absolute pleasure, John. I really, really appreciate the chance to chat with you. And big fan. And I don't think they could have found a better person to host what an incredible show than you. You're the best. Checking all the boxes, man. You're great.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure they're perpetually looking for somebody to replace.
I would be shocked if they found anyone who is more fantastic than you are. I really enjoy your energy and your curiosity. And
I'll take the player pump at any time.
Yeah, it's
Well,
fantastic.
thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me on.
I love it.
Thrilled to be a part of it, and look forward to listening to all your other guests.
Yes, thank
Appreciate you. Dylan, I got a question for you. I've been thinking, Kat and I just got married, but maybe down the road when she already deserves it all, and I know she loves her ring, and I know it's perfect thanks to Charm. Maybe one day down the road, I think to myself, all right, let's see about maybe getting a bigger diamond. I know you don't work at Charm, but what would Charm do for us?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because although I don't technically work at Charm, I happen to be a little bit of an expert. Charm has a trade-up policy where you can take a piece of jewelry in and they will upgrade your ring to a larger one. They'll take the value of the one that you already own and they will apply the value of that to the larger diamond. So there's really no risk to you, and well, you end up with the exact ring that you got your eyes on, thanks to the fine folks at Charm.
Beautiful. Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah, you're welcome, Ty. Charm is the proud sponsor of our podcast, Bromance.